Emeka was in his warehouse when his sister-in-law Nkechi called him to inform him that his wife was in labor. He was in the middle of sorting out a customer's order worth millions of naira when the call came through, stating that his wife had to undergo an emergency surgery to deliver the baby. Surgery? Emeka asked angrily, a bitter laughter escaping his lips. What's wrong with you people? Why can't she push like every other woman? Is she that lazy that she wants the easy way out? He asked Nkechi, who was shocked to hear such a response from him. Emeka, it's not about that, she pleaded, her voice trembling with urgency. There are complications. This isn't about being lazy. It's about saving her life. The doctor says she needs this or her life and that of the baby will be at risk. Tell her to push, he said angrily, not willing to listen. Women have been doing this forever. It's not that difficult. I don't have time for all this nonsense, he said, ending the call abruptly, turning his attention back to his boys, who were loading the customers' items into the truck in front of him. As far as Emeka was concerned, nothing in life was more important than his business. Men were created to work and provide, whilst women were created to birth babies. Why will his wife be seeking the easy way out to birth their first baby? What kind of laziness is that? Emeka thought to himself as he buried himself in his work. Back at the hospital, however, his wife Okuchi lay on the hospital bed, pale and exhausted, her body worn down from hours of painful labor and struggle. Her twin sister Nkechi sat by her side, holding her hand tightly as she whispered words of comfort to her, watching the doctors move around with a sense of urgency. The doctors had warned them that without an emergency surgery, both Okuchi and the baby could be at a very severe risk, and Nkechi's heart pounded with great fear, knowing that they could not wait any longer. When the doctor asked if she had the consent for the surgery, Nkechi nodded firmly, pleading with the doctor to do whatever it takes to save her twin sister and the baby. With that, the medical team hurried Okuchi into the operating room for an emergency surgery. As they wheeled her away, Nkechi could not shake off the disbelief that lingered in her mind from her conversation with Emeka earlier. His words echoed in her mind as her anger grew with each thought. How could he, her own brother-in-law, be so callous, so consumed with his business that he didn't even care about his wife's life? She made up her mind to focus on Okuchi for now, but she knew deep down that she would definitely have words for Emeka when the time came. The hours dragged by, and with every minute, Nkechi's worry deepened. Finally, the surgeon came out with a reassuring smile on his face. The surgery was a success, he announced, revealing that Okuchi had given birth to a beautiful baby girl. Mother and child are both stable, he said to Nkechi and her mother, who could not hold back their excitement. Tears of gratitude filled their eyes as they held each other, thankful for the precious new life that God had blessed them with. They knew Okuchi would be so thrilled to meet her daughter once she regains consciousness. But as the family gathered around the newborn, celebrating quietly, Emeka arrived at the hospital, angry, his expression hard and irritated. He walked briskly into the waiting area with a frown on his face. What is all this nonsense? He demanded, not even sparing a glance towards his newborn daughter. I told you people no surgery. How dare you go against my instructions? Nkechi, who was cradling the newborn baby, looked up at him, her face set with anger and disappointment. Emeka, are you even listening to yourself? This wasn't about you. It was about saving Okuchi's life. The doctor says she couldn't have survived without surgery. Emeka's anger deepened. Then, you should pay for it yourselves. I didn't ask for any of this, and I won't pay a single dime. She could have tried harder. Try harder? Okuchi's mother, who had been silent until this moment, said as she stood up, her eyes flashing with anger. Emeka, my daughter fought for hours. She was in pain, struggling to bring your child into this world, and while she was there, You are busy with your business. Is money more important to you than your family? She asked Emeka, who informed her that business is what keeps his family afloat. If you all think you know better, then pay for this nonsense yourselves. I won't spend my hard-earned money on someone who's so weak and spineless. At 24, she's already opting for surgery when my own mother, who gave birth to me at 38, did so without surgery. Instead of you being so ashamed of raising a lazy woman as a daughter, you are proud to let the whole world know that she gave birth through surgery, Emeka said arrogantly as the whole hospital fell silent, shocked to see a man think in such a way. Nkechi could not believe her ears as she hugged the baby closer, trying to shield her from the harshness of her father's rejection. The entire hospital stared at Emeka in shock, unable to believe the cruelty he was showing. After a long pause, Emeka spoke again, his voice as cold as ever. Take your daughter back with you. In fact, I'm done with all of this nonsense. I don't need a wife who can't even do her duty as a woman, he said as he walked out of the hospital, leaving everyone shocked and confused. He didn't look back, didn't ask to see his daughter, and didn't care to see his wife Okuchi, who was still recovering from her surgery. Everyone stood there shocked to witness such a reaction from a man whose wife just risked her life to have their child. Okuchi's mother was so furious. I blame Okuchi for all this nonsense, she said, recalling all the times she warned her not to marry Emeka. Now, where will we get the money to pay the hospital bills? She said to Nkechi, who stood there confused as she thought of what to do. Nkechi walked up to the doctor's office to confirm their bill and was told that the bill amounted to a whopping 300,000 naira. Nkechi could not believe her ears. We don't have that kind of money, she said to the doctor, who informed her that the bill had to be paid before her sister would be allowed to leave the hospital with her baby. Nkechi pleaded with the doctor to give them more time to pay up the debt, but the doctor informed her that the hospital was not a charitable organization and that they had to pay the debt or else the police would have to be involved. Nkechi's heart raced as she wondered how she was going to raise such a huge amount of money. She approached her mother, who broke down in tears on hearing the huge sum that they had to pay. Okuchi had just regained consciousness and was shocked to hear all that transpired with her husband Emeka. She could not believe that Emeka abandoned them to their fate, not caring about their newborn daughter. However, what was more paramount was how they were going to pay the bill. She had no money, despite being married to a rich businessman. Her husband, all through their marriage, had been so hostile and wicked towards her. He never gave her money, and Okuchi had been living like a slave in her own husband's house. Her twin sister Nkechi had no other option but to move around begging for the money, but no one was kind enough to give her the money that she needed. So, seeing how much pressure the hospital was putting on them to pay their bill, Nkechi decided to use the money that was entrusted to her by a group of women who usually made monthly contributions to her to offset the bill, hoping to replace the money before the women realized that it was gone. Once the debt was settled, Okuchi returned home with her baby. This was almost a week since she gave birth to her daughter, and her husband did not care to know how they were doing or if they had paid their hospital bills. Her twin sister Nkechi, furious to see how Emeka abandoned his wife and daughter at the hospital, decided to pay Emeka a visit to know why he would act in such a way towards his own wife and daughter. She arrived at Emeka's house and was shocked to realize that Emeka had moved out of his house, leaving only her sister's belongings in the entire house. This was so shocking to Nkechi, who wondered what could have happened. She quickly rushed off to his warehouse, hoping to find Emeka there, but instead, she met a group of men who informed her that Emeka's warehouse went up in flames a few nights ago. Where is Emeka? She asked the men, who told her that Emeka moved out of town, claiming that his wife Okuchi wanted to kill him. Emeka had told everyone that cared to listen that Okuchi was a witch after his own life, and Nkechi was so speechless to see the extent Emeka was willing to go to avoid taking responsibility for his actions. All the accusations he was spreading around town left her furious and heartbroken for her twin sister, who had endured so much in his hands already. Emeka had left town abruptly, without their knowledge, abandoning his wife and daughter with nothing. No one knew where he went and if he was ever coming back. And the thought of this broke Nkechi's heart as she wondered how she was going to break the news to her sister. She returned home and met her sister, cradling her daughter to sleep. Nkechi could not stand to see her sister heartbroken, so she decided to hold off a little to see if Emeka would return with an explanation of all that had happened. Days passed and the news began to spread around town, reaching the ears of Amaka, who happened to be Okuchi's best friend. Amaka had just returned from the village to hear all that Emeka had said about her best friend Okuchi, who he accused of being the witch behind all his predicament. Amaka could not believe the vile things she was hearing. She could not imagine what her friend was going through at the time and decided to go check up on her. When she arrived at Okuchi's family home, her heart was so heavy with empathy and anger. She found her friend Okuchi sitting quietly with her daughter in her arms. Her twin sister sat beside her, offering silent support to her as she wept. As soon as Okuchi caught sight of Amaka, her face softened, and for the first time in days, she allowed herself to be vulnerable. Okuchi, I heard everything, Amaka said, pulling her into a warm embrace. I'm so sorry for what you have been through. You don't deserve any of this, she said to Okuchi, who nodded her head as she tried to fight back her tears. I tried to be the wife that he wanted. I thought he'd change once he saw his daughter, once he understood how close I was to losing my life. But he left, accusing me of being a witch. Emeka abandoned us in the hospital. He called me a lazy woman for undergoing surgery and refused to pay our hospital bills. Can you believe that he didn't even glance at our daughter? Can you imagine the cruelty? Okuchi said to Amaka, who could not believe what she was hearing. She shook her head in disbelief as her anger began to rise. If that's the man he chose to become, then he's the one who's cursed. Okuchi, you're better off without him. You have a family who loves you and a daughter who will grow up surrounded by people that love her. Amaka said to Okuchi, who held her daughter closely, hoping that things were different. How were you able to pay off your hospital bill? Amaka asked Okuchi, who narrated how Nkechi used the money entrusted in her care to pay off their hospital bill. We are hoping to replace the money before the women request for their money, she said to Amaka, who shook her head in pity to see all that her friend had been through. Amaka, before leaving, handed Okuchi some money to use and take care of her daughter. Just manage this for now, she said to Okuchi, who was so grateful to her for her kindness. Okuchi quickly used the money to buy some essentials for her baby, who had no baby item yet. The next morning, they heard a loud bang on their door and were shocked to see the group of women whose money they had used to offset their medical bills gathered in front of their house. They had come to request for their money, claiming that they heard that Nkechi and her family were planning on eloping with their money. Give us our money now, they all requested, screaming at the top of their voices, and Nkechi pleaded with them, narrating that they used the money to take care of an emergency, pleading for more time to gather the money, but the women were not willing to listen to all that they had to say. Okuchi's mother even pleaded with the women, but all her cries fell on deaf ears as the women demanded that Nkechi be arrested for stealing their money. Before they knew what was happening, some police officers arrested Nkechi and locked her up in the prison cell. Okuchi felt so terrible for all that had happened. She knew that everything was her fault and could not sit back and watch her twin sister suffer for the help that she had rendered to her. All the women wanted was their money, and Okuchi had to find a way to get their money to free her twin sister from police custody. Okuchi then moved around, begging for money, but no one was kind enough to lend her the money. She approached her friend Amaka, who informed her that she had no money at the moment as she used all her money to restock some goods for her business. Okuchi pleaded with the women, who all refused to listen to her. She begged them to release her sister, promising to pay off the money soon, but no one was willing to listen to her pleas. So, Okuchi decided to go in search of a job. Her mother looked after her daughter while she moved from one place to the other in search of a job, but nothing was forthcoming. One afternoon, Okuchi came across a huge house in town that was searching for a cleaner. She went in to apply and was luckily hired for the job. Okuchi never expected to be given the job, but as fate would have it, the owner of the house took a liking to her. Once she realized that Okuchi bears the same name as her mother, they got talking, and the more they spoke, the more the woman took a liking to her and gave her the job. The woman could not help but notice that something was troubling Okuchi. She asked to know what the problem was, and Okuchi narrated everything to her. She told the woman that she needed some money to pay off her debt to get her twin sister out of police custody, and the woman, having compassion for her, provided her with the money, which she paid back to the women and released her sister from police custody. Okuchi was so grateful to the woman for her kindness. She returned home with her sister, who was so happy to be free. Life from that moment began to blossom for Okuchi, who found favor in the eyes of her new boss. She worked fervently, pouring out her heart into her work, and soon was offered to come live in the house as a caretaker. Her madam, Ijoma, traveled a whole lot and needed someone trustworthy who she would leave in charge of her home, and Okuchi, having worked with her for some months, proved herself worthy of that position. The pay was great, and Okuchi could not pass on the opportunity. She accepted the job and was put in charge of the entire house. Okuchi could not hide her excitement as life was finally turning in her favor. The new job gave her a sense of stability and purpose, allowing her to provide for her entire family. Meanwhile, whispers began to reach her from town that Emeka had not only abandoned his family but was now living with another woman. Okuchi paid no mind to the gossip as she focused on her life and that of her family. Emeka had chosen his path, and she too had a right to live, not to be constantly reminded of her painful past. Her friend Amaka advised her never to look back. Let him face the consequences of his choices, Amaka would say, reassuring Okuchi that she deserved to be happy. Months passed, and one rainy evening, Madam Ijoma returned home from a very long trip. She was seated on her favorite chair when a call came in, informing her that her mother had just passed. Madam Ijoma could not contain her tears. Her mother had been her closest family, and the news of her passing left her broken in a way that she never imagined possible. Seeing her madam in such grief, Okuchi volunteered to accompany her to the village to help with arrangements and support her during such a difficult time. Ijoma was so grateful to Okuchi for this. She was the only child of her mother and needed all the help that she could get at this time. They journeyed to the village together, and Okuchi stayed by her side, providing comfort and support. While Ijoma tended to family matters, Okuchi decided to take a walk around the village to take in the scenery and reconnect with the simpler life that she had once known. During her walk, Okuchi came across a familiar figure in the distance. It was her husband Emeka, sitting on a worn-out bench outside a rundown house. Her heart froze to see Emeka in such a place. He looked nothing like the man she had once known, and Okuchi could not believe her eyes. Emeka was deeply lost in his thoughts that he didn't even notice her presence. "Emeka, what are you doing here?" Okuchi asked Emeka, who fidgeted on sighting her. All he said was the name Amaka, and this got Okuchi thinking. Emeka did not act normal at all, making Okuchi suspect that something was definitely wrong with him. He kept repeating the name over and over, and Okuchi, on seeing this, approached some villagers around to ask about him. and she was told that he lived alone in the village but was occasionally visited by a woman named Amaka. Okuchi could not believe her ears. She could not believe that her best friend Amaka knew where her husband was all the while. She asked for the nearest church and took Emeka to meet with the pastor, who revealed that he was under a spell casted by an evil woman. After several prayers, Emeka regained his senses and was shocked to see himself in such a strange place. "How did I get here?" he asked as he looked around shocked, his eyes filled with confusion to see himself in such a horrible state. The pastor, without saying much, revealed to them that the evil woman put a spell on him to tear them apart and ruin their marriage. However, he revealed to her that once she returns, she will know who the woman is, as the spell had backfired. Okuchi could not believe her ears. She narrated all that happened to Madam Ijoma, who advised her to return earlier than they had anticipated. Okuchi could not wait to confront her friend Amaka to know why she would ever do such a thing to her. She arrived the city with Emeka and met her twin sister Nkechi, who was now in tears. "What is the matter?" she asked repeatedly as Nkechi took her inside their house to meet their mother, who had now run mad. "I did it," she said repeatedly as she laughed and confessed. What Okuchi did not know was that her best friend Amaka had no hand in anything that happened. It was her mother who vowed never to allow her daughters find happiness. The woman who they grew up to know as their mother was actually not their biological mother. She was their mother's best friend who became their father's second wife. When their mother was pregnant for them, she put a charm in their mattress that killed their mother during childbirth and made their father fall in love with her and marry her. All these years, she pretended to be their biological mother, but what they did not know was that she was the one behind all their misfortunes. When she saw that Emeka had come to ask for Okuchi's hand in marriage, she ensured that she turned Emeka's heart away from his wife, making him so cold and heartless towards her. She made Emeka believe that his wife Okuchi was the one behind his downfall and made him relocate to an unknown village away from his family just to make them suffer. Once in a while, she paid him a visit to fortify her charm and introduced herself to those around as Amaka, so that if Emeka is ever found, people will believe that Amaka, who is Okuchi's best friend, was the one behind all that was happening to him. She also confessed that she was the one who told the women that Nkechi planned to elope with their money. "I wanted them to deal with you," she said to Nkechi, who could not believe her ears. Okuchi and her twin sister Nkechi stared at the woman who had raised them, not believing that they had been living with the devil all this while. She laughed uncontrollably as the power of her evil spell backfired. She had spent years weaving lies and controlling their lives, but the truth had finally surfaced. "Why would you do this?" Nkechi cried, her voice shaking as she struggled to process the revelation. "You were supposed to be our mother. You raised us, but you wanted to destroy us?" The woman looked at them, her laughter fading into a hollow, empty gaze. "I did what I had to do. Your mother took everything from me, so I took everything from her, even after her death," she said, her voice dripping with bitterness. "Your lives, your happiness, it was all mine to control." Overcome with anger, Okuchi felt tears spill down her cheeks. All the years of pain and betrayal that she had endured had been caused by the very woman who she thought had loved her like a daughter. The realization cut deep, but she knew that she could not let the woman's evil actions define her or continue to control her life. Emeka, now standing by her side, placed a hand on her shoulder as he apologized for all that he put her through. Okuchi, knowing that Emeka was only a victim of her wicked mother's plot, forgave him and accepted to start life afresh with him. Emeka was not the terrible man that she believed he was. He was only acting under the influence of her evil mother's charm, and this revelation broke her heart to realize that she had been living with the devil without knowing it. That was how Okuchi and Emeka's marriage was salvaged, as their evil stepmother lived the remaining of her life mad, availing Emeka the opportunity of taking up his responsibilities as a husband and father. Okuchi continued her work with Madam Ijoma, who spared no opportunity to support them. Not only did she help them financially, she also provided guidance to them, becoming a friend and mentor to Okuchi and her family. Emeka, filled with gratitude and humility, worked tirelessly, finding joy in providing for his family and sharing in the responsibilities of raising his daughter Ada. The once broken family now thrived, bound together by love and resilience. They chose to leave the dark secrets of the past behind, focusing instead on the beautiful life that they had ahead of them. The lesson to be learned from this story is that nothing remains hidden under the sun. Do not be quick to judge others, as you never know what might be at play in their lives. Never plan evil for others, because evil always has a way of backfiring. In all that you do, be honest and hardworking, and God will always bless the works of your hands and protect you from all evil. I hope you enjoyed the story.